Ewoade, or
Yeah,
how
that's
you
it. You actually got it right. And Ewoade.
Ewoade. Hey,
Yes. So,
oh,
but you've passed.
thank you, thank you. Well, happy to have you. Well,
Yeah.
now this book is I must admit I love the printing. It's so smooth. It's good having it in your hand. I prefer it to the PDF version because I can feel it. Now, uh,
Yeah.
it's a good book, holding it, reading it, but it is your tough experience that you had to go through. Now, what led you to write this book? We know you had an experience, but what pushed you to, pen it down and tell people about what you have gone through?
Okay. So, as you rightly said, this book is largely based on my personal experience. 30th July 2017, very early in the morning, I very suddenly lost my husband. And I say suddenly because, there had been no prior illness. It's not like he had been in hospital or anything like that. And it was quite a blow. I can confidently say is that it was one of the most devastating things that happened to me. And personally, it was the first time I was losing somebody that close to me. I mean, both parents are alive. I've not lost a sibling. I've lost relatives, but they are usually quite distant. And so I have never. Hello? Hello? Caroline?
Yeah, please go on. We can
Caroline,
hear.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jewel. Yeah, so she lost her husband at dawn, and she's sharing her experience with us. Jewel, please continue the story. Okay, so in the book, she shares with us how she lost her husband at dawn, and it's a frightening experience. Okay, you wake up, your husband or your partner, um, lifeless on you, and you have to rush him to the hospital, and
Yeah.
you don't get to hear from him again. So she continues the story. We have her back now.
I'm sorry I went off. I don't know what happened. Yeah, so as I was saying, personally, it was the first time I had lost anybody that close to me because, yes, I'd lost relatives and friends, but I mean, they were not that close. Yeah, so it was it was really devastating, and for me, it was um, a time where I had so many questions. How do I deal with this? All those issues at the back of the book, all those questions there I asked, and as a Christian, I mean, I believe that the Bible holds answers to all of life's questions. So all those questions I had and others that you read, from the blurb of the book, I took into prayer and into, the word of God, trying to just understand, trying to make meaning, trying to, you know, um, gather courage to, to carry on with life, So I learned I think it's been a most instructive, as much as it was the most painful experience, it was also very instructive for me. And I find that the comforts and the hope that I received from the word of God during that time, sustained me from that time and has kept me right up until now. And I mean, I started writing articles, sharing, bits of my experience, things that helped me and all. And then I found that I wasn't alone in asking these questions and that there are others too who are facing the very same things that I faced, asking the same questions I asked, confused about the same things I was confused about. So I decided to put it into a book, to a small book, just so that these people too can have that. I mean, can share in the comforts that I received. Yes. So essentially, that was my motivation for penning that book.
who helped you in writing the book? I know, while you're writing, you are faced with the question of, should I really write this? Should I not write it? How did you overcome everything and say, Charlie, no, let me just write it? How was
Yeah.
the process like?
Okay, so largely, in fact, I'll say 80 to 90% of the content in the book was from my journal. During that time, I journaled a lot. Yeah, I journaled a lot. And I remember on the first anniversary after his passing, I put an article up on Facebook and then just summarized, the key things that had helped me. And the response was very encouraging. There were people who called me, who sent me messages and said that, look, put this thing in a book. Put this thing in a book. There are others out there who will be blessed, share, to be blessed by the information from, such a book. So I thought through it and decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I worked on it. I did some research. I spoke to people, took polls, trying to find out which issues were really hot buttons for people. And, yeah, eventually just put it together and then had it published.
Hmm. Wow. You're strong. Even though you're from God, you're
God strengthens me, my dear. Hey.
strong. In case you just the book review show right here on Facebook Live with me, Caroline Owusu Asamoah, proudly brought to you by GCOM Multimedia, your number one Christian advertising and multimedia service. So we are looking at when you lose a loved one. Our guest had to lose her, she lost her husband in a very painful way, but out of the pain, out of the ashes came new hope, new strength, and she is sharing that with us in her latest book. So now let's do a quick summary of the book, and then we find out some questions that surround it. So um, first is the dedication, the acknowledgement, the foreword, the introduction. Chapter 1 says, you don't have to do this alone. Chapter 2 asks the question and answers, what has happened to my loved one? Chapter 3, the guilt trip, skip it. Chapter 4, a walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Chapter 5, a lasting legacy. Chapter 6, it's a new season. So there we go. So, Joe, could you quickly run through the 6 chapters? Just tidbits. This is just a
Okay.
teaser together. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So in chapter 1, as you rightly said, the title there is You Don't Have to Do This Alone. And in that chapter, I deal with the issue of, people blaming God or ascribing blame to God. I mean, the problem of pain is a major question, today where people wonder, I mean, if God is all loving, loves me so much and he's all powerful, then why does he allow such things to happen? And unable to reconcile the might or the infinite power of God and his perfect love, unable to reconcile these two in the face of tragedy, many people have turned away from the faith. Many people have given up on God. Many people have said that it's not worth being a Christian anymore and have just, decided to go solo, after tragedy such as this. And so I just talk about 4 reasons why, that is not a very good idea when you're faced with tragedy like that. Yes. So it's just gives 4 basic reasons why you're not to, I mean, God is not to blame, and why you actually do yourself a disservice when you turn away from God in the face of tragedy. Then chapter 2 has to do with what has happened to my loved one. That has to do with the biblical perspective on death. In especially our Ghanaian culture, there are all kinds of myths and traditions and superstition around what happens when a person dies. And I find that a lot of them are actually counterproductive. A lot of them are not consistent with biblical principle, and they end up hampering the healing process. And so I mean, from a biblical perspective, what is death? What happens to somebody when they die? What does the Bible say about this issue of death? And what has Jesus Christ done with respect to death for us as Christians and all that? So That is what is addressed in chapter 2. Chapter 3 has to do with a guilt trip, and a very common feeling or a very common experience for many people who have lost someone dear is the experience of guilt, of somehow feeling like, it's my fault, my loved one has died. I should have done this, I could have done this. Maybe if I didn't do this, they'd still be here. It's a very common thing. It's a very crippling thing. And I mean, personally, I experienced it, and I held myself responsible for this at a point.
Wow.
But from reading and studying and prayer, I realized that no, this was unfounded. And so what comfort or what solutions or what answers I had to that challenge or that battle with guilt is what is in chapter 3. Chapter 4, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and the loss of a loved one is can be aptly described as a walk through the valley of it's a very difficult thing. Yeah, but God walks with us through it. And there are things that help, you know, as you walk through this valley, because we must walk through it. Grieving is a process that we must go through when we face loss like this. But how do you go through it in a healthy way, in a sane way? How do you go through it in such a way that by the time you come out, you are a better person and not a bitter, broken person? Yeah, that's what I deal with in chapter 4. Chapter 5 has to do with a lasting legacy, and this touches on there's a desire in the bereaved, those who have lost the loved one, to immortalize the person who has died. We don't want to forget them. We don't want to live as if they didn't exist. And so that is the reason why people put up monuments and write books and set up foundations and all that. So I talk about what it really means to extend the legacy of a person who you love and has died. Is setting up a foundation alone. So what if you can't set up a foundation? Doesn't mean that you cannot extend the legacy of somebody you love. Yeah. So I talk about how to extend the legacy. I mean, and it's something everybody can do. And then finally, it's a new season. That's the final chapter. That book touches on, understanding that in our lives, there are seasons and there are phases. And when somebody dies and leaves you, life isn't over. It just means that a season of your life is over and a new season is about to begin. And so, how to, just recognize this and take a step into this new season that is ahead of you is what chapter 6 is about. So, that's, by way of summary for the 6 chapters of the book, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Joe. Well, in case you just tuned in, this is the book review show right here with me, Caroline Owusu Asamoah, and we are discussing When You Lose a Loved One, the Christian's Hope in the Darkness of Grief, written by Joe Enyonam Ewoade. The name.
You got it. You got it.
So send your Facebook comments, send comments via WhatsApp also on 0231151615. You can send comments anywhere possible. And please share, because this story is a touching one. Now, Joe, let's delve into the book. Let's look at some questions that raised my mind while I was reading. Now, you talked about people blaming God, and God, I recall you captioned the place, He is not your enemy. All right. So, why is God not the enemy in this? Why should I lose my loved one at dawn, at such a critical moment in time? Why didn't we live together? Why didn't he warn me that this was going to happen so that at least I prepared beforehand for it? Why should I not blame God? Why should I can I get angry with God?
Okay. This question you've asked is a timeless question. Has been on the lips of, man in pain for, I mean, since forever. Yes. And I want to start by saying that there's this assumption that, when once we are Christians or once we profess a belief in God, we will not have trouble, we will not have pain, we will not have tragedy. befall us. Now that concept is from, I'll say it's from a biased view from the Bible. God blesses his people. Yeah, God definitely blesses his people. That is there. Okay. But again, he also promised us, Jesus Christ promised us that in this life we will have trials and tribulations. Why? We will have trials and tribulations because this is a fallen world. This place, because of sin, things do not work the way they should work. And so bad things still happen to good people. And sometimes some bad people get away with bad things that they do. It's not a perfect world. And so, yes, God sometimes protects us and prevents certain things from happening. Maybe he'll show it in a dream and then people will pray and then it's averted and we go and give a testimony and we thank God. Other times, in his own wisdom and for reasons best known to him, he allows the tragedy to come. He allows the difficulty to come. He sees that the enemy has plotted this and he allows it, yeah, to take its course. And in times like that, even if we don't understand all the answers, we know that he is still for us. We know that he is still with us. We know that we do not have to go through that challenge or that difficulty alone. And we also know that if we trust him, he's able to redeem that painful experience for your good, cause all of it together with other things to work for your good, cause it to work for his glory, and cause it to benefit other people. And so when terrible things happen to us, I mean, just knowing that, for me, that really helped me. That I knew that, look, this didn't take God by surprise. He knew that on such a day, this will happen to me. So he's not surprised by it. So if he's not surprised by it and he loves me, I know he has a plan. He knows exactly what he's doing. I'm just going to hold him by the hand, take it one step at a time, and see what, he makes out of it. I remember one of the things that kept me going was like, okay. So when I look through the Bible, I know all, but the notable figures in the Bible all had seeming tragic things happen to them. But some way, somehow, all of it worked for good. Take Joseph, take Jesus Christ himself when he was dying on the cross. I mean, everybody thought all was lost, but that was part of the plan. That was actually an integral part of the plan. And all these things have been written for our example, so that when we face these things, we know that, look, God is not my enemy. He's not against me. He's going to help me through this. And at the end, it will be a beautiful story. Yes. So that's, I mean, about the portion titled, he really isn't our enemy.
He's not your enemy. You may be watching this and you may have lost a loved one. And the first thing that comes in mind is, why did you allow this, God? Why did this happen to me if you claim you love me? But he isn't your enemy. Well, it's the book review show right here with me, Caroline Owusu Asamoah, and we are looking at When You Lose a Loved One, a book written by Enyonam Ewoade. Okay,
Yeah.
I have to take my time when I get there. Okay, so now let's look at your journey to recovery. How is the person watching you right now, who's lost that loved one? Okay, how do you recover? I recall when I lost my dad. I lost my dad while in senior high school,
So
and
sorry.
it was a blow because I
Yeah.
did not get to see him. Okay, before he passed, I knew he was sick and I knew he was going to get better, but the recovery process, it takes time. How does one do that?
Yeah.
Because I know it, everyone has a time, and everyone has sort of different strength and how they can cope with things. So how was yours like? How did you recover?
Hmm. It's a very valid question you've asked, and I think you partially answered it when you said it takes time. Yes, it takes time and God. The loss of a loved one, I like to liken to, a physical wound. It is a wound. It is a very, severe wound you have suffered. And like with all wounds, healing takes time. It takes time. So that's the chapter on walking through the valley of the shadow of death has to do with the process, of 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 healing, of getting well, of recovering, of finding, you know, joy in life again. Yeah, it's a process. It takes time. So don't be frustrated with yourself when you are crying or you're sad or you're just feeling angry. I mean, it's a process. Initially, typically, and I'm not, this is just the typical process, but people go through it in different ways. But there's usually the shock, first shock, where you're like, when the thing immediately happens, you can't believe it has happened. You can't believe that, like, he's really gone. It's a shock. Then before you know it, you're in denial. Like, no, it's not true. It's a dream. I'll wake up. It's a dream. I'll wake up. I'll wake up. I'll wake up. And then sometimes there's anger. How can you die like that? What do you mean? What, you get angry. And then sometimes there's guilt. Oh, it's my fault. Oh, and some people go through this in a linear way. Also, so you go through all these four and then finally acceptance. Some people go through it in a linear way. Some people, there's some anger here, then there's denial, then shock comes again, and then it goes back and forth. But all those things are important, are important. And crying, just to relieve some of that pent up emotion, it's part of it. It's part of it, but as this, these are like the natural reactions, which I'm saying are important, especially at the beginning, to just let it have its course. It helps you to process all that is going on, right? Now, afterwards, I advise or I recommend that, things like having mature, godly people around you, to be like a sounding board for you, people you can talk to, is absolutely important. And I know that sometimes difficult because usually everybody around you is also hurting. The loss has hit everybody around you. So sometimes finding somebody who will actually just listen and just give you proper feedback and all that uh, is tough. But it helps if you have a support group like that. I recommend staying in the Word of God because all the emotions, the anger, and everything, there are people in the Bible who felt the same way. When you read the Psalms, you see expressions of it, people angry, lashing out at God, asking questions, and stuff like that. You read it and it gives you a means of expressing yourself in prayer because sometimes you just can't even formulate words of your own. I'll say worship just to lighten the atmosphere because it can be so heavy with sorrow and heaviness. Yeah. I also say I've said the word, I've said prayer, listening to messages, reading, talking to people. All those things I'm not saying will make you recover overnight, but they help you, healthily process what you're going through. You understand? Yes. Yeah, so that's what I'll say. I talk more on that in the chapter on chapter 4. Yeah, many other things that help. I just hope I've answered your question, Caroline.
Um, but about denial, okay, I recall, when I lost my dad, I cried. Okay, I cried when I heard the news, but after that, it seemed like I was okay. Things were fine, smooth, and I didn't cry in a long time. Okay, again, till I think some time passed. I don't know whether it's some months or a year, and I was writing an exam. Okay, I remember the paper very well, French. I started weeping. Okay, I wept. In fact, I wailed like a baby in the exam hall. It was like a
Wow.
month. So everyone was looking at me, what's happening to this? And I was such a prepared. Everyone was looking at me, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? So some people thought it was demon possession. I thought it was. But I spoke to my school chaplain, and he explained to me, okay, that it's because I did not really grieve my dad. I did not accept it and cry. I was being all strong, feeling that, oh, okay, yeah, I'm a Christian. I have to be strong. I have to be strong. I don't have to cry. And
Yeah.
so everything, just came out like that. And
Yeah.
it's, I mean, could you not stress that better that you don't have to pretend that, oh, I'm okay, I'm strong. It's okay
Yeah.
to,
Yeah, absolutely. What you're talking about is called delayed grief. Delayed grief. And it's common. It's common. My dear cousin lost her mom last year. And throughout the funeral, like, even, when the thing happened, we went to the house. I remember initially when it happened, she cried. And then afterwards, she just wasn't crying. Like, she was just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. We had a funeral. She read, like, she was, and she was like, she just can't cry. She doesn't know why. So we're like, okay, just prayed with her, encouraged her, and all that. Then earlier this year, like, she just called me from school. She said she'll just break and she'll just be crying. She can't help herself. She just be crying and crying and crying. And she herself told me she was studying nursing. So she herself told me that she learns that it's called delayed grief, and that because she didn't process these things at the beginning, it's just going to stay somewhere, and then now it's erupting and running its course. So that's why just to add that at the beginning, when a thing comes, take time to process it. Admit that I'm angry. Okay, so right now I'm angry, and I'm angry because of this, and then find a means to, a way to deal with it. I'm sad. I'm confused. I'm feeling guilty about this, and then process it, you know, and then so that it doesn't come up, later and surprise you in an exam hall.
Hey, let's go to our comments. Yeah. Holali Tosu, I hope I got that right, says,
Okay.
"Who is a strong woman indeed. She is." Yvonne
Yes.
Lelatom Owusu Asamoah says, "Super." Elfrida Akosia Kupati says, "It was a difficult period, but God held you together. And the book just gave me hope that indeed God is your anchor." Yvonne Lelatom Owusu Asamoah says, "We know that God is still for us." Uh, Elfrida comes again and says, "Remember in the early days, you were looking for a book to help you go through the period. We're not finding, and I suggested you write one to help others in pain. And thank God it's a success. Indeed, it has been a success. A good success. Shout outs to all of you who
Wow.
did. Yeah, yeah. Wow. So you were looking for a book and you didn't find now. You've given it's really important. Now, dealing with all these things, did you have to seek professional help? Let's say see a therapist, see a psychologist, or it was maybe just your pastor or your family members around and friends?
Okay, so personally, I didn't have to see a psychologist. I know some people recommended it meant well, but I think, for me, there was this wonderful woman who came. She's a family friend, and she came in at that time, and she was with me. I mean, she would sleep with me on the same bed because, usually at night, when this thing happens, initially you can't even sleep at night. Like, you
Yeah.
can't sleep. Yeah. So I wake up at dawn, like 2 a.m., 1 a.m., and she'll wake up with me. And then I'll just talk. I'll just talk. All these things I'm talking to you about, the anger, the confusion, the questions. I just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And she'll just listen. She's a very mature Christian woman. She just listen, encourage me where I need encouragement, read, draw my attention where I'm being unreasonable, give me comfort from the word of God. She was there. Like, that was what she was doing for me. And I think for me, that is what a psychologist would have done. I've never been to a psychologist, but I just assume that that is what help I would have gone from a psychologist. So that really helped me to process things. And then I'd write out what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. I'd read. I was grateful, really grateful to have that particular woman and others around to whom I could talk and get, you know, um, encouragement, to carry on. So I do not rule out the role of psychologists in dealing with grief. All I'm saying is that personally, I would recommend that the person be a Christian, You don't want somebody who come and give you all kinds of secular, you know, ideas that will further complicate things for you. So yeah, I didn't, but I'm not saying that it isn't a good way to go. Yeah.
That's that's a great suggestion because I mean people are different.
Sorry.
Everyone, I said, yeah, everyone is different because
Yeah.
some people may not have this kind of support system around, but you had, and it's great. I had a friend, okay, my friend, she was always there
Okay.
talking to me, talking to me, talking to me, and music. As I said, the music was
Wow.
really real good, real good, and
Wow.
here today, smiling. Yes, and just lately, last Sunday was Father's Day, and not having a father, the flashback, and oh, if Daddy was here, you feel that you may have come out of it and you're okay, but whenever there's flashback, you feel, hey, what's happening? Oh, if you were here, things. How did you handle the flashback?
Yeah. Oh, hello,
Yeah,
Caroline.
handle the flashback.
Caroline.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello.
Flashback.
Yes, flashbacks.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's a very. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Good. So, I mean, it's a very natural thing because you have a memory. I just figured that, in the initial phases, flashbacks come with greater frequency and greater intensity, in the early stages. And I think it's okay that way. It helps you face the reality of what is happening. But over time, there are things that will trigger a memory. I mean, you hear a certain song, or you see something, or something crosses your mind, and then you remember, like you're talking about Father's Day like this. It happens and you're like, oh, I mean, if you were here, I'd wish happy Father's Day and all that. For me, I think one thing that helps me is that I understand that my script in this life is different from every other person's script. My story, as God is writing it, is different from every other person's story. And so my path is different. And so I don't, as much as possible, compare that, oh, this person, or we all got married at this time. How come they have theirs, I don't have mine? They are doing this. I accept it that this is my path in life. I had my husband for 4.5 years. It was a wonderful season. I'm absolutely grateful for it while I had him. Right now, God in His wisdom has said that I don't have him. And so, I wish my own dad a happy Father's Day, or any other significant male figure in my life, I wish them happy Father's Day, and then just carry on. Yeah, but yeah, essentially for me, that's how I handle it. But some people will feel better to also do something to commemorate it for them, like maybe his birthday comes, something like that. Some people like to do things, to remember him or to honor the person, on special days like that. It depends on the person, really. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. So now this is a tough one. How did you explain, or how do you explain to your kids, that daddy is no more? Do they ask, questions? How do you tell these little ones that
Hello.
this happens?
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
Caroline.
how do you explain to the kids? How
Yeah.
do you explain to the kids, yeah, that daddy is no more, that their parents is no more, that this
Yeah.
person that you see around is no more? How
Yeah.
do you do?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. My first boy was 2.5 before his father passed, and as for the second one, he wasn't even born yet. So for the first one, even at that tender age, I'm amazed that he has very vivid memories of him. Like sometimes he would tell me something that, oh, When my daddy was here, we did this, we did that, we did this.
How
Sorry, the 2.5-year-old. Yeah,
really?
I'm telling you, very vivid. And I'm like, you remember that? And then he would say, I want my daddy to come. I miss my daddy. Yeah, he actually says that. And I remember initially it was very painful, very painful to hear him say that. But now, so when he asks, I mean, from the get go, I tell him that he's gone to heaven. And for him, he thinks going to heaven is like going to town or going to the market or going to, like, you'll come back. Yeah, but trying to explain to him that well, you don't go to heaven and come back by heart like that. It doesn't. It doesn't happen like that. Trying to get him to understand that when your daddy's gone to heaven, he's with God. God says he's keeping him for now. I mean, it's something that I think he'll fully understand as he grows up. So I just tell them when they say I miss him or he wants to talk about him, I let him talk about him. I listen to him. I tell him I miss him too.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so let me read some more comments here. Lydia Ekia Nyonato says, Jewel is an inspiration. God bless her. Edem Ewade says, we find comfort in the scriptures. Kwesi Asamoah says, Psalms and hymns inspire and encourage in such a period. Lydia Ekia Nyonato says again, I used to be scared of death. I still am a little bit. So I didn't want to read her book. But after I gathered courage and read, it gave me vim that at the end of it, or God, being rooted in the word of God does help a lot. And Yvonne Lelatom also says, oh dear, I guess she's commenting to how her child, her 2.5-year-old, still remembers that uh, the dad was no more. He still had memories of his dad. As at 2.5 years, wow, that would also be a big blow. Kwesi Asamoah asked, were you having dreams in this period, and how did you manage or handle it? Araba P, I see you. Um, Faith Hepzibah, I see you. Kwesi Asamoah, I see you. Danny Peps or Daniel Pepra, I see you. Um, I see all of you. I see Iraqi. I see all of you. I see all of you. So this book is When You Lose a Loved One, written by Jewel Enyonam Ewoade. Now, she lost her husband on a very cold night in July 2017, and she is sharing her story with us. It's a moving story, her story on how she overcame the the whole experience. Well, it was a beautiful one. Let me see if I have some more comments. Okay, no, I do not have any more comments. So if you would want to have a copy of the book, you can call 020-168 9819. The number is on your screen. You can call to have a copy of the book. So just call that number and Jewel will be happy to give you a copy at a fee, of course. It's not free. Well, if you are also watching and you are an author out there and you would like to have your book reviewed on this platform, you can call 0231-151615. That is 0231-151615. It's the number that you can call to have your book reviewed. And if you want to sponsor this program, you want to see this program reach the highest of heights, you can call 0231-151615. If you also want to promote your business on this platform, you can call that same number 0231 I want to see the phone buzzing right after this session. So it's been a wonderful time on the book review show with me, Caroline Owusu Asamoah. Unfortunately, I think we lost um, Jewel, but we will have her on again right here on the book review show, and then we will, continue the discussion. We all know that sometimes with the internet, things can, go unexpected, but we still move on. We are moving on. So it's been another beautiful session with me on this beautiful Friday evening. Caroline Owusu Asamoah is my name, and we looked at when you lose a loved one, the Christian's hope in the darkness of grief, written by Jewel Enyonam Ewoade. So tune in same time next week. We are having a beautiful, ravishing, riveting novel written by Kenneth Igiri, and we are going to find out more about that. So it's me, Caroline Owusu Asamoah, signing out. This program has been brought to you by GCOM Multimedia and the editors GH. I'm also on Facebook, The Real Caroline Owusu Asamoah. So follow me and let's get talking. It's bye bye from me.